So, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Warren Leach, for those of you who don't know me. And we run a little community group called the Ungroup Society, where we kind of try to tackle some causes and some concerns in the community uh, to the best of our ability. And we've been in operation approximately 8 years. Uh, some of what we've been doing has uh, lent itself to entering into the uh, the realm of education, and to that end, we will be doing a few different efforts and a few different uh, events that are purposefully meant to engage educational issues. But today, I want to talk a little bit about hate in all of its forms and how it is manifesting itself in the United States of America at these days and times. And what is striking to me is that we are giving hate different names. We are compartmentalizing hate, and hate against people and human beings. Hello there. Why don't you have a seat, ma'am? I'm on the air. uh, so we have somebody just entered the studio, someone who's in our group, and so she's going to listen in, Susan Goodman. Um, so where was I? We're talking about hate in the United States of America, and the hate that we see most recently has been directed against Asian Americans and people of Asian descent. And so, as significant as that is, and as stupid as the reasoning behind it, it's just another compartment of a more widespread problem of hate. From what I can determine, the problem is that we keep seeing hate in these small little pockets. So at any given time, especially on social media, um, there will be hashtags and ribbons and colors and months and time frames where we focus on, at different times. It might be racism against African Americans. It might be hatred towards natives and indigenous peoples. At other times, it's misogynistic. It's violence against women. At other times, it's Islamophobia or hatred against people who choose to worship in a different way. Which, by the way, this country purportedly was created so that people could be free and to worship as they saw fit. Sometimes it's xenophobia. Sometimes it's hatred against the LGBTQ community. There's all of these pockets of hate, and as individuals who may be affected by these things, we all take turns being on the front page or in the forefront of whatever the latest hate is. And I believe at some point we have to wrap our minds around the fact that there's a large faction of people in this country who do not believe that all of these individual pockets of people are worthy of life, are worthy of safety, and are worthy of being American citizens. Because there is surely an us versus them dynamic going on in this country. And it's always been here. Let's make no mistake about that. It's always been here. It's been exacerbated by the last administration and, what we've seen as far as making hate fashionable, making hate a thing that is acceptable. So you have all of these individual pockets of hate. And what we're not grasping is that you have the so-called minorities who, judging and which was pretty much shown in the last election, the minorities are not the minority. 81 million of us versus 72 to 73 million voted against hate. We voted against misogyny. We voted against Islamophobia. We voted against racism. We voted against anti-Semitism. So there are more of us than there are of them. And when I say us versus them, I'm not talking about Democrats and Republicans. I don't give a damn about Republicans or Democrats. In fact, you might think I'm a Democrat, but I'm registered as an unaffiliated voter. I can't vote in primaries. Simple reason being, it doesn't make any sense to me to believe that any one group of people have all the right answers and that all the smartest people are in one party. That's counterintuitive. It doesn't make sense. So if you're really going to be a free thinker, you have to kind of free yourself of this party system. But this isn't about Republicans and Democrats. And I've seen this over 4 years. I never thought it was about that. What we're talking about is right versus wrong, good versus evil. Now, if you don't choose to see Republicans in this sense, because at different times in history it was Democrats. But if you don't choose to see them at this point in time as maybe not our enemies as citizens, as human beings, but if you side with evil, then there's something about your psychological or moral fabric that allows you to entertain it and allows you to accept it. And if you accept it, then you're complicit. Why we need to not compartmentalize these pockets of hate, or the fashionable hate of the day, which now it's against Asian Americans. And by the way, we are empathetic to every last one of those groups being discriminated against, because America's original sin was slavery. And so we were in on the ground floor of the hate. And in fact, the hate has been directed at us more in a concerted effort, because the United States government put laws into place to defile us, to subjugate us. So we are empathetic and we understand. What we need to do is stop compartmentalizing hate, because we see hate as hate against Asians, hate against the gay community, hate against African Americans, indigenous people. And we tend to believe that this is all a separate thing. It's not a separate thing, because there's a common denominator with all of this hate. We can look at it on a daily basis and see who it's affecting more that day, or who it's affecting more directly that day. But it's always been here. And until the people who stand on the side of justice, fairness, equity, freedom, real freedom, until we band together to eliminate the real problem, the common denominator. See, when you compartmentalize all of these different things, we're looking at the end result. We're looking at the victimization of the people who are affected. We're not looking at the perpetrators of the violence and the hatred as all one unit. It's white supremacist domestic terrorists. Why are they terrorists? Because they're using terror and violence to obtain a political end. So that's what they are by definition. Doesn't matter if you like it. Doesn't matter if you don't care for the configuration of the words. And even if you're white, I would submit to you, if you identify with that term in any way, your problem is internal. Your problem is inside you. If you can't reconcile the fact that you don't have the right, or no one that you know has the right, or people that you identify with politically have the right to hurt other people, the problem is yours, not ours. Not ours and what we call you because you fit a definition. You have to, we all have to see Trump. I haven't spoken his name since he stole the election with the Russians. What he did, honestly, you might think I'm crazy for saying this. Susan's sitting here. I know she's gonna think I'm crazy for saying this. Trump was a roundabout blessing because, and I feel bad for Hillary Clinton because she really literally should have been the first female president of the United States. How history shook that out is what it is. But the thing is, Trump was a useful idiot. He was a useful idiot for Russians. He was a useful idiot for Mitch McConnell. He was a useful idiot for the racists who are in government, the Jim Jordans, the Ted Cruzes, the Ron Johnsons, the Steve Scalises. They all used him. They used him to uncover a base that they know is so united in racism and hate that they can use them to get elected. Will they win large scale national elections with this dynamic? No. But the people who are confined, the Congress people who are confined to certain districts, and the senators that are confined to certain states that lean racist, they know they cannot separate themselves from the hate. If they do, they lose power completely. They fall completely out of power. So that's the political landscape that we're talking about here. But the moral landscape is such that Asians, Jews, African Americans, indigenous people, the gay community, Muslims, and any other group that is being marginalized religiously with political action against that group, we all need to band together and understand once and for all what Trump has helped uncover is the end game. It's the final iteration of what America will be. We need to stop dancing around white supremacist domestic terrorists. We need to stop trying to figure out different names, cancel culture. Like people believe that they're being canceled just because of free speech. But you don't get to yell fire in a crowded theater and then say, I'm trying to cancel you for causing a stampede. Now, how do we know every word that I'm saying is true? Because for a solid year, Trump set up this dynamic that if he lost the election, then it was rigged, and that real Americans have to do something to take their country back. Real Americans, by the way, who are flying Nazi flags and Confederate bars and stars. The real Americans, ironically, the racists, the white supremacist domestic terrorists are carrying the flags of our greatest enemies. Phil Albia has corrected me and said not the Jews, but the Jewish. I thank you for that, brother, because I don't want to offend anybody and I want to be on point when you're calling for solidarity. So thank you. I appreciate that. We have to stop compartmentalizing the hate because the hate is all coming from one group of people and it's coming in the direction of people who don't look like them. So if you're unsure about who is in this fight with you on your side, if they're white supremacist domestic terrorists I don't care if they call themselves patriots. I don't care if they call themselves Americans. I don't care if they say, well, we're just trying to save our culture, whatever. Their goal is to eliminate and marginalize and do away with anyone who doesn't look like them or agree with them. And what do we see on January 6th? Be clear about what we saw. The law enforcement, now you're talking about the seat of power for this entire country. Think about what you saw. Really think about it. Just a crowd of people. By the way, before I forget, because I'm getting older, I forget stuff. Is Ron Johnson, is he a congressperson or is he a senator? I think it's his senator. Senator Ron Johnson said on the floor of the United States Congress that he wasn't afraid during the Capitol riots because they were white people. But had they been members of Black Lives Matter or people of another color, then he would have been afraid. That tells you everything you need to know about whether these people are complicit and on the side of white supremacists. Think about this. 10,000 people, I'm going to keep calling them what they are till people's ears bleed. 10,000 white supremacist domestic terrorists descended on the Capitol of the United States of America and proceeded to smash in the building where the most hallowed building where our laws are made in pursuit of lickers to kill them. And no one thought it was prudent to get the president of the United States out of the city. Bobby Williams is letting me know that Ron Johnson is a senator. I kind of knew that, but I really want to stick to the facts because you know how it is. If you blow one fact, then people try to blow your whole argument out of the water. So think about this. There were white legislators in Congress that day and in Washington, D.C. that day who had no fear at all. Didn't occur to them for 1 minute that maybe with a riot going on, 10,000 white supremacist domestic terrorists thought it was cool to be there. At the same time, you're trying to tell me that Trump, his sons, Rudy Giuliani, a whole host of lawmakers all decided that they were going to challenge the results of an election that had been adjudicated in 61 different cases by Trump-appointed judges. They were going to somehow overturn the election, and they called these people to Washington, D.C. as backup. And after seeing what happened in the Capitol, they went back on the floor and still voted to not accept the results of the election, many of who have not fixed their face to say that the election was fair and legal to this day. But they won their election. Exactly. Susan points out that if the election was rigged, Trump lost at the top of the ticket, and Republicans picked up seats in Congress, and they nearly held the Senate, and they won in many state houses across. So for it to be rigged, they would only have to be singling out Trump, but allowing the other Republicans to win. That's a whole nother idiotic conspiracy argument these people have. But let's get back to hate. What are we going to do at the end of the day? Are we going to just keep saying, well, it's really a shame that they're attacking Asians today, because the minute that their attention gets turned to something else, then they'll attack that. The problem is not the individual pockets of racism and hate. It's the people who are perpetrating it. God willing, and this is why I thought it was so important for Joe Biden to get elected. I don't have to love a Joe Biden. I don't have to love Kamala Harris. But I do know what was waiting on the other side. And had Trump been able to steal this election, the hate would have increased. You have Black people jogging down the street getting murdered. You have Black people lying in their beds getting murdered, while the state's attorney charged the cop with possibly endangering the people in the next apartment. That's how little they think of us. Yeah, a brother sitting on his couch, off-duty cop walks into his apartment and kills him. Like, we're not even safe in our own home. So what are we going to do about it? Are we going to pretend like these are just isolated incidents that are directed at different people? Or are all of us going to understand, Asians, indigenous people, African Americans, Muslims, the Jewish, all of them? This is the end game. This is them against us, and they mean to take it all. And if you look at American history in any way, shape, or form, they don't march, they don't protest, they don't hold hands and pray, they don't light candles. They don't do legislation. They'll pick up a gun, a battle axe, a sledgehammer, a spear, a slingshot, whatever the hell is the weapon of the day, and take what they feel is rightfully theirs. We need to understand where we are. All this pontificating on Facebook and hashtags and this, that, and the other. These people are at war, and where we are at a severe disadvantage. And I bring it back to the FBI and law enforcement and how woefully unprepared they were. It wasn't that they were unprepared. If 10,000 Muslims were planning to march on Washington, D.C., would there have been a few hundred Capitol policemen there? Or would there have been an armored division? They knew what was coming. There were enough white supremacist domestic terrorists within these organizations to slow down response or to not respond at all. And just before Trump left, be clear, he put a whole bunch of his sycophants, people who were unqualified, put them into seats of power in the Pentagon, literally 2 weeks before all of this happened. They knew what was going to happen. They knew what the lack of response was because they generated it. I'm about to get off of here because it's just about time for 2WICX's mix. Jay Lang puts together every Saturday. I just want you to know that we need to stop looking at hate as a thing that is directed at just one or two groups. This is ongoing. It is the tradition of America. It is as American as apple pie. And right now, these people are operating out of fear. They know the demographics have changed in America forever. They know that they will be in a population minority in the next 25 to 30 years, and they're doing everything they can to install judges, Supreme Court justices, laws, and all sorts of things to hold power for themselves and for their children and for their grandchildren so that they can keep perpetuating the lie of white supremacy. You need to look at this thing like a war. Because while we've been praying and marching and protesting and loving our enemies, they've been planning, plotting, arming, and putting into place systems to keep us subjugated and keep us under their boot heel. We're here. We're here right now. God willing, the new Department of Justice under Merrick Garland lands on these fools like a ton of bricks. And then what we do is we take our communities. We secure our communities, we secure our neighborhoods, we secure our people together, all of us, anyone who has ever felt the sting of racism or hate. So that's all I have for you today. Signing off from So Here's the Thing, Warren Leach. Enjoy 2WICX midday Saturday mix. Peace.